So the last video kind of gave us the generic details about graphing quadratic equations, and now we're going to try to follow this 5-step process to graph the quadratic function, and this one's given to us in standard form, so it should be pretty easy. So step number 1 is to figure out whether this is a u or an upside down u, and so you do that by looking at the leading coefficient. So here the leading coefficient a is -2, and that's less than 0, so this is upside down. So this graph is going to be an upside down u. So I already know that's going to be cupping down. Okay, now step 2 is to find the vertex. So find the vertex, and that's h comma k, where h, well, remember this is going to be a times x minus h, so h here is actually 3, and then it's plus k, so k is 8. So you got to remember that you take the negative of whatever you see inside of here to be h, and then you take this to be k. So that's k, and this is h. Okay, so we know that we have a vertex at 3 comma 8. I'm going to plot that. So over 3 up 8. So already I know I'm going to have something that looks kind of like that. It's going to be cupping down, and it goes through the point 3 comma 8. And this also tells me that the maximum value here, the maximum value of this function is, so maximum y value is 8, and that occurs at x equals 3. So it's kind of some extra information. Because the graph was cupping down, we know that this had to be the max. Okay, now step 3 says to find the x-intercepts. And you know how to do this already. Because if you think about it, what are we asking when we want to find the x-intercepts? We want to know what happens when y is 0, right? So you're setting f of x equal to 0, and you're solving the equation 0 equals -2 times the quantity x minus 3 squared plus 8. And to do this, you want to use the square root property. The square root property for quadratic functions. So what I want to do is subtract 8 over to both subtract 8 from both sides. So I subtract 8 over to the one side. So I get -2 times x minus 3 squared, and then I'll divide by -2. So I'm just getting the thing that's squared by itself here. So that's 4 equals x minus 3 squared, and then I take the square root of both sides. And remember, I need to have a plus or minus there somewhere. So this should be, what is that? That's 2. So plus or minus 2 equals x minus 3. So x equals 3 plus or minus 2. So 3 plus or minus 2, so that's what? That's really either 5 or 1. Okay, so I can plot those. I'll plot those right here. Here's one of those x-intercepts. There's the other. Okay, so again, to find the x-intercepts, you just use the square root property for quadratics. And then finally, step 4 is to find any y-intercept. And you also know how to do that, because if you're finding a y-intercept, that's when x equals 0. So you're looking for f of 0. And because this is in standard form, this is actually pretty easy. You just take -2 times, you plug in 0 for x, so it's -2 times 0 minus 3 squared plus 8. And so now that becomes -2 times 9, because -3 squared is 9, plus 8. So that's -18 plus 8 gives me -10. Okay, so that means that the y-intercept is down here at -10. And then finally, you have to just connect these points up with a nice continuous kind of smooth line, smooth curve. Okay, and you see that this graph is symmetric about the line y equals 3, right? So the axis of symmetry is a line x equals 3. And again, the vertex was 3, 8. Okay, so finding all of these things, finding the vertex, finding the x-intercepts, and finding the y-intercepts just boils down to some algebra.